Aloha, my name is Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from my battleship here on the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is AI-driven leadership and growth. My special guest is RJ GRIMSHAW, American business leader, entrepreneur, and executive coaching expert for AI digital transformation. As former president and CEO of Unify Equipment Finance, RJ led the company from $14 million to $250 million in assets, and today is leading the charge with the AI CEO.ai and Able Leadership, where he guides business leaders on how to use AI to increase organizational growth and drive more revenue. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for the introduction. I have to compliment ChatGPT for that wonderful bio that it created for me off of my prompt. It makes me sound a lot. I've done a lot more than I probably actually have done, and I have to credit all my luck and success to everyone I've been surrounded by. It takes a team, and the world that we're moving into, it's that much more important too to be surrounded by like-minded people and really trying to raise each other up. So I appreciate that intro.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. So to get started, I like to have the Cliff Note version of, your story, business transformation, where you started and how you got to be this AI guru that you are today.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an AI guru. What I would say is I was fortunate enough that I was in a time of my life, in a chapter of my life, that I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do next after leaving Unify, after growing that. And by the way, Unify, as a matter of fact, I just had lunch today with the CFO there, and they're going to have another record year, which warms my heart because it's the foundation that we built. So the Cliff Note version is I fell into AI by accident in 2022, and I quickly learned the advantageous part of AI. There is downside and negative to AI as well, and I'm not going to skirt that and say that there's not a negative to it. But like any new technology, new tool, new way to work, you have to lean into it before truly trying to understand that. So really, that's what I did. And I just dove in. And as I tell my buddies in the equipment financing and leasing industry, I'm not a guru. What I was fortunate enough to have the time to learn about this while you're busy operating and running your business. And that pace of change just continues to evolve at a pace that, quite honestly, is too much right now for business leaders and owners, because all you hear is every other word is AI. It's actually turned myself off to a certain degree, because I can't even keep up with it. And I live it every single day with all the different LLMs. So I advise clients to take a deep breath. You're not missing out, and really start focusing more on strategy than the AI.
I think that's really good advice. And I think you're right. I mean, it's just, you can't turn around without seeing some type of AI. And even with us and, in the marketing, I think it's another opportunity for fraud, right? Of like a win. And then here you have data, and we know what's going on in Europe with the GDRP in California. And, this is just a very scary time for, to be trusting AI when we know it hallucinates. We know that we're not really sure where some of this data goes. What are your thoughts on how to determine, what partner do you pick? Like, do you have some criteria you go through?
That's a great question. So one thing that I've really prided myself on is vetting third-party providers, specifically our industry, because this is a new marketplace and people see as an opportunity. And when you're working within $1 trillion opportunity, a lot of private equity, a lot of funds you're going to get their attention to enter into a market. What I've been advising our clients from a perspective of the technology is going to continue to change. And from your point, or from a fraud perspective, some fraud came out this weekend. There's a lot of people use Otter. There's another company called Fireflies. And what I didn't like about Fireflies when it first was introduced in the marketplace was not so much the technology itself, it was their marketing practices, which led me to tell my clients, do not utilize or download Fireflies, because I could tell the way that they were marketing, they were holding transcription notes hostage until other people would sign up off of that meeting. And to me, that's marketing that just oversteps its boundaries of a tool to be used. And that's just one case of several. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone. What I'm saying is just be conscientious of when you're downloading a third-party new AI app or new AI tool, to go and look at maybe the privacy on their website, go look at the legal ramifications on their website, to see who you're dealing with, to understand who you're dealing with. And again, from an ethical perspective, because at the end of the day, all these companies are trying to build a moat right now to protect their interests. And you and I, Anna, would be doing the same thing if we had the dollars invested in these companies. But that doesn't create a good situation for the business owners because we're caught in the middle trying to make that determination of what tools we should pick. And as you said, they're fast and furious. I don't know about you, but I know that my LinkedIn feed, my Facebook feed, any feed I go to from the social media perspective, it's AI, AI, AI. And that's the part that us as humans, we take a good thing and wreck it because we over leverage it and over talk about it and over hype it and over sizzle it. And that's what's going on right now. So we're actually fixing more problems than we are building new problems because people signed on or went into it without a certain framework. And Anna, that's what we teach. There has to be a certain framework. AI will only cause chaos if you don't follow a certain framework to deploy it.
Well, I think that's great. I want to get into your framework, but you brought up something that really just touched me a minute ago. The Otter AI is a for instance. We see that being popped up, and the second you sign up, then all of a sudden you're getting transcriptions of every single meeting. Well, now with these deep fakes that are happening and the ability to create an AI voice with almost nothing, right? That's something I didn't even think about. That these transcriptions, who knows, it could be now stored and used, and then they could create fake people.
So we have this is a personal tidbit for what your audience might do with this. We've actually set up a code word for the GRIMSHAW household because of that. So we have a code word that's not emailed, it's not text. We talk about it when we're together as a family holiday if the quorum's together, we'll say, hey, are we good with our code word? Just because of that, we're only preparing for what we don't know. And if all of a sudden my wife receives a phone call that I'm in a bad situation and money needs to be wired, she'll just simply say, what's the code word? So that's kind of our VPN or our two, secure sign-on.
Three-step authentication, right?
You do that. It really is. And it's sad to do that. But at the end of the day, my dad used to always say, all we're doing is keeping honest people honest by putting in these guardrails to protect ourselves. And these are the guardrails with new technology. There is going to be negative, negative characters with this. And unfortunately, that's our job, or my job, I feel, is to keep up with this ever ending pace of change to protect my clients as well from saying, hey, do not select this vendor because of this, this, and this, or look out for this. This is what we're seeing. And I've now have set up in terms of automation is to curate that information and be able to provide it to my client base on a timely basis. Again, because they don't have enough time to keep up with it, nor Anna, do they know where to look because there's just so much noise in the marketplace.
What is your breakout? Because I mean, for us over here, we're seeing, a lot of enterprise companies, they want to make their own, right? AI, right? Or because it's their data and, we're also protective of our data, which we should be. But what percentage of your clients are picking a third party versus talking or coming to you with this idea of let's create it ourselves?
I like the way that you think. Due to the fact, Anna, I've been advising my clients that they will be able to build everything that they're being offered within an LLM. I apologize for that. I thought my phone was on mute. Hopefully you can.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear.
New iPhone that I'm learning how to operate still. So I'll leave it as that. So back to your question in regards to third party first build your own. A lot of clients are leaning into third party right now just because that they had the early advancements of the technology. An example of that is Microsoft Copilot. It's real easy for organizations to embed Microsoft Copilot into their business and say, hey, we're leveraging AI. But that truly isn't an AI application. That's just a wrapper within Microsoft's product. We're advising our clients that we firmly believe that you will be able to build these tools at a fairly economic cost and control the way that your data is controlled versus leveraging a third party. Now, is that going to take place next year in 2026? I believe so. However, even if it doesn't take place, the process, the framework that we talk about, you can still continue to build. And that framework is you need to understand your processes within your organization. Secondly, you need to understand the tasks that are associated with those jobs within the organization. Then you have to layer on top of it your KPIs in terms of your standards of how you do that. Most companies nowadays, either they don't have that, or if they do have it, they haven't updated it relative to the new technology that's able to leverage with autonomous AI agents. Are we there yet? No. We're not there yet. And if anyone tells you we're there, I would ask, I have certain questions to validate that because it's just not ready yet. It's
Yeah.
moving.
I'm with you. It's the same thing with, whenever someone gets really excited about firing all the developers. And I'm like, okay, hold on. You've obviously never built anything because, even that's like when WordPress first came out and everyone said, oh, we are not going to need developers anymore. We still need developers. I build WordPress. I don't write any code. We still need to have those technology people. And who's going to vet the AI script that it wrote? You need a developer to read it to say that it's real or not.
That's correct, but I will say over 2 years, and I'm far from a coder. I am far from a coder, but I chuckle at myself that I code now. And it's very addicting to a certain degree because you're able to have instant gratification. So as we're building websites in WordPress, there's just something about that dopamine where you're able to put together the puzzle. And then when you get the puzzle together, it's always, what can I improve for my customer? What can I, and it's just that evolution of innovation that drives me. And that's really why I love AI, because you're able to use tools that we never had exposure to. There's tools like Lovable, leveraging Lovable in terms of building out APIs within a small business to help automation is an incredible tool. However, to start leveraging these tools, you need to learn how to prompt correctly and how to articulate the task and the objective and the persona. And that goes back to the AI literacy. If you don't have strong AI literacy and understanding how to prompt, none of these tools are ever going to give you the value that they can offer you.
It's true. And then so back to, the creating your framework, a lot of, I think where I see a lot of problems is in the data itself, right? That the data integrity of, okay, we know now how our organization works and we know what we want to do with the data, but then we have to rely on this data. So how do we make sure that the data is accurate?
Well, the first thing is, believe it or not, Anna, finding the data for some folks. They don't know, or it's in multiple locations. And then, okay, let's consolidate it and then clean it. So we brought on a data scientist on our staff as a consultant to advise our clients in terms of when we discover the data, how you should cleanse it, clean it, tag it, meta tag it from a description perspective. And then also what type of prompting you're going to use. Are you going to use RAG prompting? Are you going to use Lang prompting? So it's really determined now what the end game is. So in the world of AI, it's really important to work backwards from what you're trying to achieve, not just, hey, let's build it. It's starting, we have friction here, analyze the situation, build the tool, leverage the tool, and then execute. And that's our framework called ABLE. Analyze, build, leverage, execute. It's a continuous circle for any type of AI agent, any type of initiative. It doesn't even have to be, we were using ABLE before AI came out. We were using ABLE at Unify as our framework to any new initiative within the organization started through an ABLE document. You analyze the situation, you would build what your solution is. How are we going to leverage it? And is it leverageable? And then can we execute against that? Peter Drucker is an amazing author who focused on execution. So we believe in a lot of his beliefs in terms of rolling out our framework to our client base.
Is that like the 4Ds of business? Like is that his, what book did he write? Didn't he write?
He wrote the Effective Executive.
Okay, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. This is, and you can see it's been worn. This is one of my, every year refer back to, or certain situations I'll refer back and say, what would Mr. Drucker say in this situation? And he's one of my, inspirational mentors that I love learning from. And his principles, it doesn't matter what time frame you're in, his principles are still true to business.
So you mentioned a couple different types of prompts. I don't think my listeners might know about. Can you tell us, what is these different prompt languages that you're talking about here, and how do they apply?
It's not so much the prompting; it's the sourcing and the parsing of the data. Is when I refer to RAG or LAG type of parsing of the document. The prompting really, at the end of the day, comes down to 5 core things: the objective that you're trying to ask the GPT to do. Okay. The second thing is the persona of the task, the person that's doing the task. Okay. That would be, hey, I'm a pizzeria and I am trying to figure out, now the task is to figure out my margin on my cheeses. If I'm using 12 ounces of cheese per pizza, I produce 100 pizzas. That's how you do the task.
Yes.
Great metaphor. The way to think about this is, if you were to walk to a coworker in a coworker's office or down in their cube and ask them to do something for you, and then you walked away, If that person wasn't able to understand what the task was and the objective was, then you did not do a good job of prompting. So you can relate to it almost in your communication style. And I tell a lot of people when they spend a lot of time prompting, and you probably experience this too, you become very literal in your
Yes.
conversations because there's no gray area when it comes to prompting. These LLM models need black or white. They need distinct instructions. So there's no, I'll call you later or help me, do it's, I will call you at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
I'm using that as an example. I have a GPT that will analyze my email to set up for appointments. It has specific tasks associated with that prompt to look for misses in my calendar that I don't see it from a human's perspective. So that's how you should be using and leverage AI to pick up on the blind spots that we have as humans and leverage it as a tool because there is still a lot of hallucination that you referred to. So there has to be human in the loop. And people have to learn, I would say, learn the hard way to a certain degree. I've learned the hard way where you take an output, you don't read it as thoroughly as you should,
Yes.
and you email something, and then you go back for some reason and look and say, oh, you were in a rush, you didn't slow down. So with AI, it makes you go faster, but really the true professionals in this world slow down when they're using AI because the models are doing the work at such a pace. It gives us an opportunity to really think of things from a strategic perspective, more importantly, with intent of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. So what is one of the projects you're working on that you're most proud of?
I would say today that the project that I'm most grateful for and happy is that we're building out a logic layer, and what I mean by that is the brains that will sit above a CRM system to help. I'm in the equipment financing and leasing industry to help providers be able to understand their data. You talked about data earlier before. They never had access to these types of tools, or if they did have access to these tools, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up and develop a tool that be able to analyze their data, put out dashboards, reports, and more importantly, look at the KPIs of future predicting of the behaviors of their client base. And that's what we're building out. We've been building this out for 6 months. It takes time, effort, and then mapping the data to the CRM to be able to ensure that that data that's being extrapolated is accurate back to the truth of record. That's a lot I just said. And now with AI though, however, it's speeding up the time frame to be able to validate this data and validate your code as well. And we have to have an engineer on staff, to your point. We'll use AI to code, but at the end of the day, we always have a human engineer on our staff to evaluate the code before we push anything out as a commit to our platforms.
Yeah. I'm working with one of my other clients is another Forbes author, and he has something called the Even Flow. And what it does is it's an AI layer for communication. It's called, basically human communication, right? So if all these different silos at an organization, and someone's in Salesforce, someone's in Teams. These people are your cell phones, there's emails. Well, what happens is some people, just kind of like the concept of let them, they don't want to be updating every single software, right? Or and there's a huge expense of seats and then data's old at the end of the month. They have to update something. And so this creates a middle, kind of like a middle layer where you can be in Salesforce and you don't have, you can pick a software
Mhm.
and it will update all across across the layer. So it's called connected conversations. It's very interesting. It makes me think of what you're doing kind of.
I love that. And actually I am targeting Salesforce. I'm partnering or collaborating. We've been having conversations with a local CRM company here based in Ann Arbor, Michigan that actually I leveraged when I was the CEO of Unify. Um, and they were just recently acquired or making heavy investments into their MCPs and into their APIs. So a lot of my clients are on Salesforce, and Salesforce is a great company. I mean, Salesforce changed how CRMs are viewed at the end of the day. However, like anything that evolves, it gets to a point where they become bloated and they become, not user friendly, and they become focused on giving a good return to their shareholders versus focusing on the customers that help them grow. So Nutshell is a company that is focused on customer delivery and seeking input from their customers as they build out their agents and building out their technology for the future. And that's the type of company I want to be involved with. With that, again, back to that middleware logic, where they'll have one login and the entire ecosystem will be in that system, pulling from the database out of nutshell. So if they have to go and pull reports, we're just going to leverage APIs. But at the end of the day, they are in one login, one ecosystem, and eventually, this is really stretching people the way that they think. Eventually, people are going to be able to code in their work, in their job, and then provide it to a human engineer to review it. And they're going to be able to manage their own workflows to do their job. JP Morgan Chase did this. They rolled out iPads to their entire staff with GPT-4 loaded on there with the proper guardrails to protect data and things of that nature, and said, we want you to leverage GPT-4 and 5 and OpenAI in your job however you feel best suited, but we'd like you to tell us how you're doing that. So they're getting feedback from the workers of how they're leveraging ChatGPT in their organization, but it starts with the proper guardrails.
Yeah, I think you're right. What are your thoughts on, sharing data? Because I know a lot of places are very siloed, especially in supply or we talk about that bullwhip effect of when, it was COVID and all of a sudden everyone orders toilet paper because now there's this huge need, but then by the time it gets all the way to China and they make the toilet paper, now the need's changed. So, what are your thoughts on how we can use AI in a global way to increase productivity across an entire channel?
Well, keep in mind, the whole premise of AI is supposed to be open source. And open source is to raise everyone up, to share knowledge, to raise everyone up, to make everyone better at what they do as humans. So the premise, that's actually also what really pushed me and was a driving force to continue down this path of AI. Is if you look at a Hugging Face or a GitHub, and especially with MCPs, these larger technology organizations are allowing smaller businesses to leverage the same technology as the bigger organizations, specifically around MIT licenses, which are free to leverage the technology that's already built out. However, it's taking someone with the knowledge to be able to understand how to leverage those NCPs and the AI connections to build out, again, an ecosystem for their industry. That's where I firmly believe, because the way that the workforce is managed today, or the way that people work, will be completely different in 5 years. Completely different. I don't know what it's going to look like, Anna, but I can guarantee it'll be completely different, and we're already starting to see that. So really, I'm not here to talk about good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just here to talk about the change and how we can be prepared for the change.
Yes. So what are you most excited about? What kind of software or different tools do you think are gonna, be some of those early wins?
I think in OpenAI, if they continue, 5.1 was a really good release that they just released on Friday. 5.0 was a failure. So we went from a high, 5.0 is going to be the greatest next thing, comes out, flop. 5.1, my clients are like, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. You have to wait until I'm learning with these models. And what's interesting, and I spend so much time in these models, which right now is good, but it's not healthy long term. I can actually sense when they're pushing something, because they'll move buttons around. The engineers are in there all day, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, my projects used to be here, now it's here. Oh, my connectors used to be here, now they moved it there. So what I'm excited about is really the evolution of an operating system. And I don't care if you're in Claude, if you're in OpenAI, if you're in Perplexity, if you're in Grok, it doesn't matter. But if you're in the tool, you're going to be able to build eventually an ecosystem to run your business right in the LLM and leverage the LLM. And then around your databases, build out knowledge bases. You can build out, just tools. For example, I leverage a tool now in my email I mentioned a little bit ago. But if you were to email me, it comes into my email. It looks at the history of our communications back and forth. And it will look at my persona, understands who RJ is, and then it'll give me a draft for a response. It will not send the response, but it'll have a draft ready for me. When I log in, I'll see my emails, and then I can go through the drafts and make any edits and then hit send. So 90% of the work is done by the AI. I'm completing the 10% of it. Now, some people might frown upon that and say, are you cheating? There's still some AI stigma out there to a certain degree. But in the same respect, I say, it's the same way as a dishwasher. I could hand wash my dishes, but I'd rather scrub them, get them somewhat clean, put them in the dishwasher and take them out clean. Same thing with my email, metaphor. The email, if it's 90% there, and then I'm doing the last 10%, which is the most important part to ensure that it sounds like RJ, not like a robot, and the data's accurate that I'm responding with, then why wouldn't you want to leverage those tools?
Absolutely. I think that the problem is maybe in the future where, we all know that the difference is I don't think it's cheating because you know how to do your own email. I know how to do my own email. I've written books. I know how to do it all myself, right? So when I use AI, I'm like, okay, well, I'm accelerating this process. If I didn't have it, I would still be able to do it myself.
Hmm?
The question is for the kids, right? Or for those who are coming up in this world of AI, and are they going to be able to do it without it? That's where
So
we're some
that's a wonderful, wonderful question. And I do not have the answers for this. All I can do is look upon university leaders. And Arizona State is one of the first universities is now just telling all of their incoming freshmen, do not pick a major. We'd rather have you come into the university with a curiosity mindset because the world's going to continue to change. And most likely, unless you're in a profession like a doctor, an engineer, if you're going to school as a business major or a business major, let's leave it as that. Most likely you're going to have 7 to 8 different careers, if not more, in terms of what you're doing is going to continually evolve. So the most important thing is to be curious and to always be a life learner. And what's really interesting now is 5 years ago, when kids would go to school as an English major or a writer, people were like, oh, liberal arts, good luck. Hopefully you make it. You want to know what the number one degree now being recruited for within AI organizations and big companies? English majors,
really.
because they can articulate and be able to communicate with the LLMs and be able to write proper prompts because they're very literal in their communication style and understand the English language better than most people.
It's interesting. So I work with one of my clients here, own an advertising agency, is Hawaii Medical College. And I was speaking with them the other day about the change of education coming from before we had just in case education. We learned things just in case we needed it, right? Now it's reversing to just in time. And that's kind of, I think, along the lines of what you're talking about. Like people are not going to learn these other things until they need to. And then they want to like download it quick.
And you have the tools to download it quick.
Yeah.
As I tell them, I have 2 boys, 31 and 26, and we've been in AI for 3 years now. So to them, it's just part of life. But early on, probably a year into it, when they would come and ask me something, they got to the point where they would understand if they were asking me something, the first question would, did you run it through ChatGPT? Did you prompt ChatGPT? And then eventually, of course, they stopped coming to me. The goal wasn't for them to stop coming to me. What I did was I said, after you get the information from ChatGPT, if you want to discuss it, that's when you come talk to me, because now we talk about the wisdom piece of it. How do you apply it? How do you leverage this? That's the human element of it. But the AI will research and give you the answers that you need to be able to do anything you want and learn anything. Notebook LM is the greatest tool ever. And if the Notebook LM is where you can take transcripts and or any type of educational information, load it into Notebook LM, and it'll produce a podcast for you from an education perspective with 2 people talking. Google did enough research to understand that when there's a conversation take place in regards to a knowledge or education, humans learn at a faster pace when it's a conversational versus just a download.
Interesting.
So I put everything into Notebook LM from an education perspective, and that's my education system. Then it'll also build out brief cards. It'll build out a video for you if you want. It'll build out a Q&A section for you. So it's really based on education for a tool. So if I was an educator, back to your children, that's a tool that I would introduce them to right now. If you want to learn about something, go download a transcript off of YouTube or, certain guardrails, of course. And then you can make a podcast and listen to the podcast. And as a matter of fact, you can actually personalize the podcast where you're talking exactly to the person. So it could be, this podcast is made for Anna, and really pull and immerse in the person that's learning.
That is amazing. Wow. I think the thing that I worry about now is, when there's so much information out there, And the verification process. I think now it's if chat says it's the right answer, then we think it's the right answer. And the fact is that I work in search marketing and I can manipulate search. So I can
By
manipulate
all means.
things. Right. So it's like then what is the next layer of what's that Wikipedia or what is that stamp of approval that this is real?
Yeah, that is a wonderful question, because what I do today is I'll take information and I'll run it through all 3 models or 4 models and prompt it differently. So I'll start is, can you please read this article or this information and advise how factual and accurate it is?
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that at times. I'll run it through Perplexity. Perplexity is the best of this. You can really do deep dives with Perplexity on validation, and you can ask it to bring back links to support the response. So the time that we're saving with the prompting, you still should be leveraging it in other areas of AI. And that is exactly it, Anna, where you can look at, where did this information come from? How did it validate it? And then, matter of fact, I have one agent that will fact check everything 3 times, because the last thing I want to do is post something on LinkedIn. And that's where this Fireflies, comment came up. I don't want to wreck anyone's business, but in the same respect, if you're misrepresenting to clients across the country and your evaluation went up 100x because of bad practices, then you should be called out.
Yeah.
And it should be, those are the bad actors that are going to, I don't want to say hurt good actors, but it's going to make it that much more difficult for people like you or I that have great tools and are really just looking out for people to help them, because someone is out there just trying to raise capital and that greed.
Well, I mean, 100%. It's just like the BBB. Why did the Better Business Bureau even come into existence? Because if we don't self-regulate, we'll be overregulated. And I think that's, we're seeing it in digital marketing. That's why I wrote my book. And there's not a solution yet.
Right.
To be frank, I mean, there's the frauds up over the board. But, what is going to happen if people like us don't, take this seriously and make sure that the consumer is being protected?
I've sat on a couple of calls with big influencers just to watch their pitches, and it's scary. And that's the ethical piece of it that I'm challenged by, because they see opportunity, and I don't blame people when they see opportunity, but they didn't take time to really learn the technology and bring people on that can help them, to really provide value to people, versus just saying, hey, for $1,300, we'll build you a custom GPT that's your brain. People don't know how that works. They don't know how, they just see the sizzle of it. And really at the end of the day, they don't know how to use the technology. It's like throwing keys to a 15-year-old and say, here's your Ferrari, good luck.
Yeah.
It's never going to work out well. I go back to the AI literacy, and that you have to learn a lot of it, but you really have to learn back to the prompting, understanding, because you can create biases and you can really spin information any way you want to. That's just human nature. And you also have to remember, Anna, using these models, they are gauged to always be forward thinking. So you can end up down a rabbit hole real quick in a certain situation. We advise our clients that we actually now embed this in our prompts, but if it's not embedded, every 3rd or 4th prompting exchange, remind it to go back to the original task and redraw. Go back to the original task. Please, let's go back to the original task. Let's reground on the original ask. It'll go back. It'll always say, good idea. It'll never argue with you. Good idea. Makes sense. It'll go back, because what you're doing is you're reining it in, because we all learn the hard way. All of a sudden, 3 hours later, it's gone down this rabbit hole and you think you've built the greatest thing ever that's going to make your business. But really all it was is just, there's nothing.
It's the same thing as like when you're listening to Pandora radio, and if you have a channel, you want to listen to jazz and it's going great, but then the second you start thumbing things, or you stop training it, right? It gets off on a tangent. Now you're listening to country and you're like, what just happened? Well, you didn't tell it no. And now it's like, oh, this is good, for me.
And we've been doing this as consumers for the last 20 years. Anytime you went into Amazon, don't think you didn't go into Amazon and you bought something and all of a sudden those 5 other things that showed up, that's just reading off your algo of what you're looking at and things of that nature. So AI is around us everywhere. It's just now they're allowing us to use it, like the larger organizations.
I think one more question for you. So what are your thoughts? I've heard there's been a lot of chatter, and I'm specialized in solar and energy, right? So And the story was originally that, oh, we've done math and we've determined that if you say thank you and please to AI, there's this many more characters being used worldwide, and that equates to this much more power being sucked, and and basically that you should just treat it. You shouldn't use those words because it's a not living creature and doesn't need to be polited. Or that's not a word, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And let's talk about the macro, and then we'll drill down to being nice, not nice to your LLMs. The macro, there is a power issue. There's going to be an energy issue, and I don't have the answer for that. That's why you're hearing discussions around nuclear again. You're hearing there has to be some solution
We
because
need it all.
amount of data and energy, and then specifically when we get into quantum, which is coming, folks. Quantum is coming. And what I mean by that, it's only going to expedite and speed up all this technology. Again, I'm not here to talk about good, bad, or indifferent. It's just factual. Just pull up YouTube. It's coming.
Well,
They're
we're all
just
excited about being we're in the quantum field. I don't know if you're into meditation, but I love
so.
Dr.
But that layers back to answering your question in regards to how you treat your LLMs. I please and thank you all my LLMs because I believe as a good vibration as a human being, that LLM is a tool that's helping me grow my business and helping me grow as a human. So who am I not to treat it as a tool and give that energy as a person to the LLM? That's just me
What
because that's
I
the way I am in life.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I actually tested because I was when I was just very cold, and you get better responses when you're polite.
Mhm.
And I think that here we are training. When we think about the future of the existence of it being like the Matrix, or what is this AI? It's a child right now. We're teaching it how to behave, and we have to give it the reasons to want to not take over.
I agree with that, and that goes back to the energy of the universe and quantum and the vibrations you put on. It's all intertwined, and when you really start taking a deep dive into AI and the universe, and I know that's not what we're here to talk about, but it all plays into one. It's all around the matter, and it's all around the energy. Um,
It is.
and again, back to open source and the premise of AI. AI is a tool to lift us all up, to make us all better, to make my doctor. I went to a doctor a week ago for my annual. They're using AI now. I said, thank you. I'm glad you're using AI. And I don't let my records go out. If my health records can help other people, I'm all for it. Because what's someone going to do to know that I have high cholesterol? Right?
Right. I mean, as long as it's not your name, so that then your insurance premiums go up, when you start getting.
Well, they're going to go up anyway. So, and that doesn't matter if I'm a bill of health or not. Insurance premiums are going to up, and we could go down a whole nother, rabbit hole with that. But in the same respect, I just view it as a tool. And I'll say this: if there's a lot of folks that are going to be unfortunately let go in terms of, we're already seeing so many people downsized, white collar, people didn't see it coming. Those are the folks that I feel for.
Yeah.
However, there's an opportunity to learn a new skill set. And this skill set is, if you just learn how to prompt, forget about all the gimmick tools and NAN and Lovable and Cursor and all the tools that are coming at us, GitHub, just learn how to prompt. And Google has amazing free resources that don't charge anything of how to build a prompt. And if you just learn how to prompt and add that to your resume,
There you go. I'm with you.
you're already farther ahead. And oh, by the way, it's a skill you're going to need the rest of your life.
And to your point, it's fun. I mean, now, I've only been really using it for about a year myself personally, and it's like a dream. I feel like I've always wanted like a mini me, and now I have one. And it's AI, and I can just do 3 times the work that I used to be able to do.
Just the marketing aspect of it. I mean, the marketing tools between Opus and Pitzel and all these different thumbnails, it's just amazing. You can produce. It really provides tools for that marketing or strategic leader that they didn't have before, or they did have, it came at a large cost.
Yeah.
And now they have the opportunity to leverage these tools. That's what I'm really excited about.
So definitely an equalizer. I agree with you. I think it's lifting
Yeah.
everyone up and equalizing. And then it's like, now it's time to spend time on what is the difference between your company and another company? Because like with the GEO, the generative engine optimization,
Mhm.
how if you don't make a decision, the AI is gonna make it for you. Right.
It does.
And let's be prepared, right? That's what it's doing, right? The AEO and the ask engine, answer engine. And that's where like all of our clients are coming to us now of, oh, what do we do? It's recommending this. It's like, well, we need to decide. You can't be everything to everyone.
You raise a great point, and that where I talk a lot around strategy and planning. There's a distinct difference between the two. Business leaders, we're very good at planning. We're very good at planning. It's natural, right? Here's our to-do list. We're planning our vacations. We're planning our, we're planners. When you start doing strategic conversation strategy, you should feel uncomfortable because if you're having a strategic conversation, you're talking about the future, almost a blue ocean talk, where you're not sure if it's going to work or not, but you know that what's working today, the planning, isn't going to get you where you need to be in the future without strategic conversations. So if you're doing any type of strategic conversations that people say that they're doing, if you don't feel uncomfortable, you're not having strategic conversation. You're just planning, which is 90% of the folks that are out there. True strategic feeling is walking out of that meeting feeling uncomfortable about the unknown, but having a plan that most likely and will change, but you have a plan.
That's it. Well, thank you so much for being here. How can people get a hold of you?
Website www.theaiceo.ai or just Google RJ Grimshaw. I'm on LinkedIn. I blog a lot on Medium, all the social fronts, YouTube. I answer all my own emails with the help of AI. But
10%. It's getting
yeah, but in the same respect, the world that we're going to, you have to be, I believe, founders are going to have to be out in front of their brand more so than ever before because of the false fake fronts that are taking place. And in this AI world, as I tell my clients and future clients, the education difference between a person like myself or you and someone that's coming from a big four organization is the same because this technology is so new. They didn't have any advantages around prompting or anything of that nature. So you can pay if you want to 100x more, or you can pay truly what the value is that we're going to deliver to you. And that's up for you to judge that upon. And it resonates with people. And I think it's going to continue to resonate because we all know that there's scope creep, in terms of when people go into projects, it's never delivered on time. It's always delivered over budget. I want to turn that upside down and say we will deliver on time and we will deliver under budget or on budget. In the same respect, we want to give you the tools to be successful.
Yes, I agree with that. Well, thanks so much for being here. And to all my listeners, please join me next week as I interview another industry expert in a topic to help you succeed on and offline. Thank you so much. We've just reached 60,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I cannot do that without your support. So continue to subscribe, like this content, share with your friends so I can get more great guests like RJ to share their wisdom with us. I'll see you next week in the Pixels. Aloha. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Covert Code Podcast. If you're loving the insights we share here, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more digital innovators like you. Share this episode with your friends and colleagues on social media and help spread the word. And if you're in the solar space or just curious about where clean energy is headed, I'm thrilled to announce my brand new podcast, The Solar Coaster. This show digs into the real stories, trends, and challenges of the solar industry, with bold conversations and powerful takeaways you won't hear anywhere else. Follow the Solar Coaster now so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the pixels. Aloha.